All right, we're going.
We're going now.
Hello, my name is William Burnett, and welcome to Talk Video. I'm sitting here with Juan MacLean,
MacLean, yeah.
Who's visiting from
Green, Fort Greene.
Fort Greene. Oh, really? Okay, I don't know you very well. We've only really met recently. You have your show is oftentimes just after mine.
Yeah.
At the Lot Radio, who's made this all possible.
If not every time, but yeah.
Yeah, I guess I'm kind of a hog. I'm there every week on Monday.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I'm once a month.
Oh, is that enough for you?
Not really, but I miss it a lot because I'm on the road on tour.
Mm. And so, you don't get, you can't just, move it on down the road? Or you have, the first Monday of the month? Or
yeah, I forget if it... I think it is the first Monday, actually.
Does your show have a title, or it's just you?
No, but I should have a title.
Yeah.
Recently, I should have a title, and I should start...
Mr. Juan MacLean.
Speaking.
No, I don't know.
During it.
Sorry.
But I've decided, I think I mentioned this the other day when I saw you, that I need to get more serious about these kinds of things.
I guess I am part of it. I guess this is part of it. This is my my 2 cents.
Right.
So you have watched some of these things.
Many of them, yeah.
Yeah, and thanks for coming. I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to this. We tried to do it a couple times, but I don't know what happened. Whatever stuff was going on.
Well, I notice they tend to be a bit biographical. So do we start in the beginning?
I don't know. I mean, that's the other thing. So you can. I would also like to hear. So I don't really ask people what they think yet, or I guess I don't really talk to a lot of people. But
yeah, in general.
Yeah. So I mean, is the one thing I noticed when I was watching them when I edit is that sometimes the biographical stuff gets kind of boring, or it gets too detailed, and then you kind of lose focus. So
yeah.
And you haven't seen. I did 5 more or 6 more already, and I've been doing a little more just talking. But sometimes then you lose direction and you don't have anything to talk about. So it's kind of I don't know how to do the balance. To start off. I don't know. I guess we'll just do. Well, let's do a little. I don't really know anything about you. I guess it'd be cool to do a biographical. The thing is, I know you. The first thing I came across when I saw the name Juan MacLean was, I was kind of hanging around this distributor place, probably too much, and a little record store, and the record came in and it was a New York label, and it was Juan MacLean. It was a purple. Was it a purple label?
Purple.
The first DFA record, I guess. Was it? Was it the first one?
First one was. I think it was blue.
Oh, blue. I don't know, but it was
you're going back to 2002 to the beginning.
This is the first time
that was 2002.
I came across the name Juan MacLean.
Yeah.
And then that was it was by the time I get to Venus.
That's right.
And that was no one. This is before DFA was a thing, right? I guess that was just was that the first one?
It was the second one. The first one was the Rapture's House of Jealous Lovers.
But they came out really close.
The same time.
Yeah.
A month apart or something.
Yeah,
I mean, DFA was basically formed to put out those things.
And before that, and then later on, I had actually come across you once before in my previous life, and that I had gone to Emos to see one of your old bands.
My only other band.
6 Finger Satellite.
That's right. And
I don't remember. I think you played with Low or Dirty 3 or I don't.
It would be Dirty 3, not Low.
It was. It was at Emos in Austin.
We played there many times. There's some important distinctions to make. That's the only band I've ever been in.
Oh, okay.
Which I formed when I was around 19.
Yeah.
And we very quickly got signed to Sub Pop Records, if you know that record label.
Yeah, I've heard of
it. In a kind of improbable way of we had played what's that thing called?
South by Southwest?
Yeah. South by Southwest. When it was actually a college radio showcase.
Well, they would be what do you call this? Bookies. Or what? I don't know what you call it. A&R scouts.
For real. From indie labels. There was no major label involvement or anything. There was no big name anything. And we played, and John Poneman and Bruce Pavitt from Sub Pop were there. And they really liked us. And we gave them a demo tape and then what did they do? Call on the telephone? I mean, I
guess so.
No joke. They probably called on the phone and said, "Do you want to be on Sub Pop?" And that was it.
Left a message on your machine.
I mean, seriously, and it really did work like that. Like, we went and played at the thing where indie bands went to go play in front of A&R people from indie labels.
Yeah,
and we got signed.
So. Okay, so that's my early. That's all I know about you. Besides your show is on the lot. So how did you get into this Six Finger Satellite Band, and like where did it start? Was that?
I was.
Where are you from?
I grew up in Boston.
Boston. Okay.
And
I'm sorry.
It's the worst. I mean, if we can do a brief aside.
I think everyone's in agreement.
I think so, especially in New York. I feel like it's easy to find people who hate Boston here, but I hated it.
It should be so nice. It seems like it's like so close to being a nice city that
it's nice if you're a racist.
College student?
A college student who wears like polar fleeces and like Patagonia is the peak of your fashion statement, and it's so frustrating because I think it has the most college students in the world there, and then all the things that you think would be interesting about a place filled with college students don't exist.
But didn't they had like what, Newberry Comics or something?
Yeah, that was a big part of when I was growing up, was Newberry Comics. But I mean, I grew up at a pretty early age, got into like punk and hardcore scene in Boston. In Cambridge, where it was pretty strong. It was also pretty stupid.
Sweet, but I mean, so let's put this in perspective. Can we talk about age? I always don't know if that's a rude thing or not.
It's not at all.
So what years do you have brothers and sisters? Your parents are still married. Super religious family.
I have 3 younger sisters. I was the oldest in the family. And I was a male. I was what they call an Irish prince.
I was a male.
Yeah, I was. I still am. Though how we define these things these days is a little more open.
Yeah.
But I was the first person. No one in my family had been to college, or my extended family. And I went to Providence College, which is just far. I just wanted to get out of there. I wanted to get out of Massachusetts.
Yeah. And that's like a art school kind of, or
no? RISD is the art.
RISD,
RISD is the art school. And when I was in high school, I went to a Catholic high school, and I was into punk and hardcore. I was into weird stuff, and this is in the 80s.
Yeah. So you're in graduate high school in what year?
Do you think it's weird, like, that I don't know? It's either 86 or 87.
Oh, that's close. That's good.
I don't know which it was. And to me, the dream was like to go to college, and I was like, there's going to be all these people there that are into weird stuff like me. People that are into like Public Image Limited and the Swans.
So there weren't kids in your school
Scratch Acid
that like that stuff.
Not really. There was like 5 kids. There's like the kid with the mohawk, like the couple of gay kids that were out at the time. So we all got like lumped in together.
Oh, the outcasts or something.
Yeah. But I thought I would go to college and it would just be this like paradise of this stuff.
Yeah.
And then I went to Providence College and it was all like business majors from Connecticut. And I was so profoundly disappointed.
Oh.
But in Providence, there was RISD, which is the renowned art school.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where all like the weird kids were. And I was very envious of that.
So when you went there, you lived in a dorm or something?
I lived in a dorm.
I
lived in a room with 2 other kids and 3 others, actually. There were 4 of us, and they hated me. They hated my music. And it's weird. It's hard to explain to people now, but back then, stuff like wearing like Converse, like Chuck Taylors, was considered some like really rebellious act.
Yeah.
I mean, you were this is the word that was used often. You were a faggot.
Yeah.
Like that was just the word that was used. It it had not. It was not. I don't think people used it as necessarily as a reflection of what they thought your sexuality was.
It was just the thing that was yelled out the window of the car at you.
That's exactly right. For something as innocuous, what is seemingly innocuous now is like wearing, a certain kind of sneakers or something, or skateboarding too.
Yeah.
But I went to Providence College and was in shock about what I'd gotten myself into, and then kind of hooked up with, very quickly there was like the group of weirdos that found each other.
Yeah. So you just kind of like look, oh, you got Converse on too.
Yeah, that kind of was it.
Or like a band T-shirt or something.
Or a leather jacket and like a Scratch Acid T-shirt.
Yeah.
Which familiar.
Which is David Yao's band.
Yeah, that was David Yao's first band from Texas.
Oh yeah.
And then I found I was like, I just want to be in a band, so I got a guitar and hooked up with a few other people that wanted to be in a band, and we just made this band.
So there's no other musical background besides the listening before that?
No, I grew up pretty Catholic, and I took guitar lessons when I was like, 10.
Yeah.
And I learned how to play the songs that we played in the church, like Michael, Roll Your Boat Ashore. Like, this is in the 70s, and they were really big into like acoustic
sing along.
Yeah, that stuff in church. So I learned all those songs, and that's the extent to this day of my musical training.
So you knew the chords or something?
Yeah, I could play like open chords on the guitar.
Sweet.
Yeah. So then, like, at some point in my early teens, I started learning like bar chords and how to play like Sex Pistols songs on the guitar, on the acoustic guitar.
So you didn't like stay like all like major chord, like.
I didn't know what that. I didn't know what a major chord.
No,
was.
I mean all your songs are like Bob Dylan, or like.
Yeah.
Or, I don't know. That's not a good example, probably. But that's interesting. That as a kid, how did you find out about? Like you mentioned Scratch Acid a couple times now. How did you find out about that? You said Newberry Comics before, which is a record store and a comic store.
Yeah. So the routine was like we'd go into Boston on the weekend and like skate around, basically from record store to record store. And there was no internet back then. Yeah. Yeah, this is the 80s. So you would just go in.
I remember.
And I worked, I always had a job like when I was like 13 on, and I would just spend all my money that I was supposed to be saving for college on records. You just go into the record store and like go to the hardcore section and basically like bought stuff by what looked cool or whoever was working in the record store like might tell you about something. And fanzines were big too, so I would read those. There was one called Forced Exposure that was a bit. Are you familiar with it?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was it was. I don't even know if I'd call it a fanzine because it looked kind of like a magazine.
Yeah, I think it was just like a paper magazine. Like it wasn't glossy.
Yeah, and that's what pretty quickly took my tastes out of like the hardcore world into like sort of post-punk, and at the time what was indie rock, which to me is such it's a term that like denotes like such like ineffectual nonsense, but back then it was like the Swans, early days of the Swans, which we were a terrifying band.
But for me it makes me feel better in that period to call it college rock, like or alternative music. Yeah, because that's really what it was called at the time. No,
it was. Yeah, it was college rock. But even now, like saying that, I feel like that evokes such different,
But that's the music they would play on the college radio stations.
Yeah,
or like or maybe on 120 minutes, like maybe that one. Yeah, or that I guess that wasn't quite a thing yet at that time.
No, I don't think it was.
No. It was purely you would just hear about this from like your college rocks. That would you would hear it on
a lot of college radio,
and you'd like wait for them to announce what song it was.
Exactly. Or sometimes you called and you asked them what it was.
I never got that brave.
But I was always like writing down what things were, and that's how you did it.
Yeah.
And I just loved everything basically.
Yeah.
And that.
Were you going to shows or anything too?
All the time. every weekend was at hardcore matinees were a big deal.
And when you say hardcore, like I want to say Fugazi, but Minor Threat.
No.
But that's
Minor
later.
Threat, yeah.
Minor Threat,
but that was DC. Like in Boston, it was a little dumb. It was a band Gangrene.
Okay, I remember the name, but I can't remember a song title.
SSD or SSD Control were a big one.
I don't know.
The Groinoids, who later became Kill Slug, the FUs. There was a compilation called "This Is Boston, Not L.A."
Okay.
And that was kind of like a document of the Boston hardcore scene, because there was all this rivalry like between Boston, New York, L.A., D.C.
Yeah.
It was dumb. Like in Boston, the approach was like, it was basically like fighting. Like hardcore shows were like a bunch of dudes, maybe like 3 girls that kind of looked like dudes on the periphery, and in retrospect, it was actually very homoerotic. It was all dudes, like take your shirt off, and like half naked, and roll around,
and touch each other.
Yeah, roll around with each other,
get all sweaty,
and be tough.
Wow, and I don't know any of those bands. I can't. That seems pretty obscure.
Yeah, and it was kind of dumb, but in hindsight, I just was always drawn to things that were, I just wanted to like, kind of blow my mind.
Yeah.
Like to this day, that's kind of a guiding principle. And hardcore, though, I quickly outgrew it because it's like, fast and aggressive is how they were getting there. But you can only be so fast and aggressive. It's kind of like saying you're just going to be loud.
And it's also straight edge generally, or
yeah, it was a lot of straight edge.
So that's hence the fighting, because there's like you're either going to get drunk or you're going to fight.
It was straight edge, and then, I mean, I was never like fully straight edge, but I didn't like do drugs in high school or anything.
Yeah.
Just kind of drinking.
So Boston hardcore punk. You go to school in Rhode Island. I can't remember the name. Providence
College. That's
Providence College.
Yeah, that's where I went to college.
And you hook up with some. You're skateboarding this whole time?
Yeah.
And were you serious about that, or was that just kind of?
No, back then it wasn't. I mean, that question wouldn't even have made sense back then. Like, it was a way to just sort of get around.
You weren't like stopping at spots and like doing tricks or.
A little bit, but nothing crazy or anything. Like, I just didn't think of it that way.
Not like obsessed with it or anything.
No, nothing. No.
It was just like a cool mode of transportation.
Yeah, it was just fun. Yeah.
And so you're off at college, and you meet some similar-minded people. Finally, do you remember any of them, or were there like any specific people that were like an older kid that you know?
Still friends with them.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was definitely this guy Pete Phillips was one of them, because he would later he was a member of Six Finger Satellite.
Oh, okay.
And he was like the cooler guy with like long hair, is like amazing guitar player. There was this transition out of hardcore when like people who listened to hardcore started listening to like
Ned's Atomic Dustbin.
No, Neil Young.
Oh, okay.
That was a big one.
Yeah, okay.
It's
like pre-Drag City or something.
Yeah, but post-punk was a big thing.
Yeah. So what year is this? This is like 88 or something. 80.
Yeah, like 88, 89. That was a big transitional time period for me.
To put it in perspective, this is like commercial stuff is like Guns N' Roses.
Yeah,
like that's full on Appetite for Destruction.
That's
time.
what people don't. I guess it doesn't make sense now, living in the context that we're living in, that anything that was mainstream was very much the enemy, and there was zero crossover. Like to this day, I have such an aversion to like Guns N' Roses, because it was everything that I despised.
Yeah.
I don't think it's funny to like it. I don't like it.
I kind of like Lies, the album.
I wouldn't.
But I'm younger than you, so I was like 8 or 9 when
yeah,
this was going on.
It makes a really big difference. Yeah. But I did. I was into like Kraftwerk were a big one. Can.
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I mean that's another. That's one of those weird ones that. Kraftwerk is a weird one because you had it like some people found out about them through like breakdancing and stuff like that in the 80s and whatever sample and hip hop, but then also they came in strong through the indie and new wave and punk stuff, because I mean some of their stuff was really weird. because I mean that's like when you would go to listen to Kraftwerk in 1988. If you went to the store to buy a used Kraftwerk CD, it would be like Radioactivity. It wouldn't be like the regular one.
No, those early ones. There's even one that I remember that has a lot of flute on it.
Yeah.
Klaus and Florian are sitting on or on the back cover.
Ralph and
Ralph.
Klaus.
Was there a Klaus and Kraftwerk?
Klaus and Nomi and
Klaus Nomi, yeah. He was not in Kraftwerk.
I don't think so.
But I was into like the Stooges and Kraftwerk.
Yeah. In college.
Yeah.
And so you met this guy. His name was
Pete Phillips.
Pete Phillips.
Yeah.
And he played the guitar.
A little bit later, there was this other guy, Jay Ryan. It was really he and I, and he was the singer. Like, because nobody wanted to sing. That was like
I always thought that Six Finger Satellite was from Seattle because it was on Sub Pop.
I know. So we were the first non-Northwest band that they signed.
Oh, weird.
And everything they had done until then was like grunge, like pretty hardcore grunge stuff, which I liked at the time, like Mudhoney and Tad and these kinds of things.
Yeah.
And we were like sort of a cross between like Devo, Gang of Four, and Public Image Limited. Birthday Party was a huge influence. But also there was it was the 90s, and there was like from the outset some pretty bad drug problems.
What, with your band or in the 90s?
With me and others in the band.
Oh.
Another in the band.
So you're in college and you have some friends and there's drugs.
Yeah, I didn't graduate. But my friend Kurt, who became the bass player. We signed to Sub Pop and then we started touring and all this kind of stuff. But now there are two heroin addicts in the band. When you're trying to tour, it's kind of a nightmare.
Yeah.
I mean, it was dark, really. He died of a heroin overdose, like fairly early on. So.
Oh, okay.
Somewhat a few years later into it.
I didn't know any of that.
Yeah, and then.
And did that scare you straight, or?
Well. No, I had. We had been touring for. Man, a couple of years. And then at some point, the other guys in the band just couldn't take it anymore. And after one particularly dark tour, like they kind of dropped us off. Literally, I just remember it was like throwing my bag out the back, like, sorry, we don't want to see you guys again.
Jeez.
I mean, there was stuff like in Texas, actually. I don't remember where. Somewhere, like, we stayed at someone. You're always staying at people's houses. Yeah. And what we were doing was, because to try to like score heroin every day in a new city is a nightmare, because you don't really know where to go and that kind of thing. So we were FedExing it around the country to ourselves. But we'd be very sick for days on end, and we had played at Emo's, like, and hadn't slept in like a couple of days, like very dope sick, and then got like a shipment in from FedEx, and the guy that we were staying with wanted to try it and OD'd, and like the police came, and
you don't want to go with the police in Texas.
Yeah, all that's all that kind of stuff. Like, and that was just like a day in the life of being on tour. It was kind of a nightmare. When we came back, I finally went into like I had tried to get clean many times and it just didn't work. But finally, I went to a long-term treatment center. I think it was like, this is like 9 months.
Yeah,
going away.
And you're what, like 25 or something?
Yeah, I was 25. Yeah, I was 25. So this was from my teens to age 25. And when I got, I don't know if this is a too personal, but what are the benefits of heroin? I think it's kind of like if you're interested in just annihilating yourself, I think really who it appeals to is people that are already in like unbearable amounts of pain for whatever reason.
Yeah.
It's usually childhood stuff.
Like an escape.
Yeah, it's like you stick a needle in your arm, and by the time you've taken it out, you've just wiped out the world and can sit there
in peace,
and just
because it's
be dead.
It's a weird one because you like, it's often associated with like a very creative people, that in a creative period in their life. And I mean, I don't know if it's easier to create when you have a blank slate, or I always just wondered that.
No, I think to attribute any of the creativity to the drug is a massive misunderstanding.
Okay.
I think it's more like the kinds of people who are like highly sensitive and have somehow been traumatized as children are more likely to turn to like solitary creative pursuits, like sitting alone in your bedroom learning how to play guitar.
So it's like a correlation.
Yeah, and then but really it's a mistake to think that those drugs help in any way with being creative. I think some do, but not something like heroin.
Yeah, no, I don't know if that was a appropriate question or not.
No, it is. I'm pretty open to talking about all of that stuff.
Yeah, because I mean, I've had several really good friends and roommates, and around heroin. It's I never really understood it, like why they did it, but like once they started doing it, it was like all.
Yeah,
it never really stopped.
I mean, it's your whole life.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no taking a break. Like you can't wake up and be like, I think I'm not going to do it today or something. Yeah, like you just have to do it every day.
Like I remember another guy that he told me, he said he tried it one time, and he said that he still thinks about it, like that he wants to do it again. I was like, Jesus, man, that's crazy.
But that, I also think there's a misunderstanding of it where there's this idea that that it's such a seductive, like amazing drug that if you do it once, then you'll be addicted because it's so amazing you'll not be able to not do it. And that's entirely not true. Like so many people do it and they're like, I don't want to do this again. Like it makes you really sick. Like you throw up, like you're really out of it. Like most people don't like being that disconnected. But I think for people that are in enormous amounts of pain, they do it and it takes the pain away. And then just as an animal, how can you not go back to this thing that has now relieved like unbearable suffering?
Yeah. But so another thing like that I remember from being around this stuff is that they don't, you have like these moments with these people and they don't remember. Like, you said you were touring for a while. Like, do you remember those times at all, or?
I only really remember like the sort of extreme,
the sick,
the like dramatic extreme stuff that happened,
like police or something.
Yeah, the police, or just just ridiculous stuff. I mean, some of it's funny. Like, I just reached these states of paranoia where because I was also like. I mean, this sounds bad. I was going to say, this sounds bad. Maybe it is bad. We were always, like, shooting cocaine, too, and, I mean, it was the night, like, crack was around and stuff. Like smoking crack, which I didn't enjoy that much, but,
Why not?
I mean, that was kind of the thing.
Some more wine while we're talking about crack.
But, I would reach these levels of paranoia where there was a time, I remember being in the van and freaking out because I thought all the other guys in the band were cops, and that the band was actually a front for the police to somehow get me.
So paranoia was
a big part of it. But also,
Jesus Christ.
Like our whole first album was like, all about all this stuff.
And were you writing the songs, or you all did it together? Or?
Well, writing in the sense that I would write like guitar riffs at home, and then we'd go in the studio and kind of work them out. But it was a lot of like go to the studio, take a lot of drugs, and start jamming. Take out the best parts of the jams and make them into songs and stuff.
And when you were recording this stuff, you had like a home studio, or
no? Our first album, we did at Lenny Kravitz's studio in Hoboken.
Sweet.
And then,
does he smoke a lot of weed or what?
I don't know. At the time, our first day when we loaded in and everything, he came in and he was like, here are the rules of what's going to happen here. And he first thing points to this this mixer that has like knobs instead of faders, and it looks really old. And he said this was the Beatles like 8-channel, first like 4 or 8, maybe 4-channel tube mixer that they did like their biggest albums on. He's like, you're not to touch this, like don't even look at it. And as soon as he walked out the door, we of course dragged it out, and then and we took a picture of the engineer sitting in front of it using it, which is on the gatefold insert of the album, just to kind of be jerks.
Did you put a shout out to him, like thanks Lenny?
No, I mean I that at the time that was the kind of stuff like I just hated stuff like that. Like that kind of music or people like that or that kind of thing.
If you saw him today, do you think he would remember?
No, I doubt he would. I really doubt it. I mean, that was the only time we interacted with him at all.
Okay. Just curious.
But there was the kind of stuff of like, and Sub Pop put us up at this hotel near the studio.
But where? Oh, you said Hoboken. Okay.
It was in Hoboken.
Okay.
But it was just chaos. Like I remember.
And so this is in the 90s. This is like
this is
92,
91 maybe, 92.
So all the other guys they were from Boston too, or they were from various parts of the Northeast?
Kurt, who was the bass player, the one who died, was actually from New York.
Okay.
And had gone to Brown University, which is in Providence as well. And then the rest were Rhode Island dudes. And but it was me and Kurt were the ones maintaining these drug habits. And it was grim.
Yeah. And so you made a record in Lenny Kravitz's studio, and I guess it did okay. And you did some tours for a couple of years, and you did how many more records did you do?
I have to think about this for a minute. Wow, I should really know this. There were four LPs.
That's quite a bit, and that it's like one a year or something.
Yeah, back then that's what you did. It was kind of like one a year. Well, there was a hiatus while I went away, while I was locked up in the long-term place.
Yeah, the long-term place.
That was dark too. Yeah.
And where was that?
That was in Providence.
In Providence.
Yeah.
So and would your family come visit you or
no? They didn't. They did. I was on my own.
They stopped talking to you.
I actually, at the time, like if you remember, there were just telephones, and it was really easy to avoid.
You could write letters.
You could write letters, but I would kind of like move around and not tell people my phone number or.
So they didn't know where you were.
Yeah, a lot of the time, and it was dark.
And were they aware of your problems, or you were just hiding?
Yeah, I mean,
probably.
Now in hindsight, I realize like that as parents, like there's stuff you just don't want to admit or acknowledge or deal with. Like when I was probably like 19, I think 18 or 19. I remember my girlfriend. We'd broken up, and to her credit, I think out of consideration and care, like called my parents and said, he's addicted to heroin, like so he's going to die if something doesn't happen here. And they they called me home to Boston, and I remember like taking the bus up there. Like they were very insistent that I come home, and it was July. I remember taking the bus up there, and I remember my father picking me up at the bus station, which was very odd. And I was like, why, that's weird. Like, and then, and he said, it's just quiet for like 15 minutes. He's like, I won't say her name, said, something about heroin or something, that you're back doing it again or something. And I was like, no, that, she's just saying that because, she's crazy and I broke up with her, blah, blah, blah. And meanwhile, it's literally like 100 degrees outside. I'm in a long sleeve shirt. It was all that kind of
dark
stuff.
time. So, don't do heroin.
No, don't do it. That's my advice. That's the moral of the story, is don't do it.
And so, this is Six Finger Satellite days. And then, so after, I guess you got clean.
I did, yeah.
And since the band had dropped you off and the other guy had died, or before that, or during? When I came back from treatment, he had taken off to New York, and I think part of the thing was like I was like, I can't even talk to you. Like, you have to, to get out of that life, you just have to, like, you can't be around it at all. You can't be around anyone, anything. And then I told him that, and then he just kind of like spun out of control and died. Jeez. Yeah. Well, and so what happened to you after? So that means there's no more band, I guess. There was no band. I was like, I had a social worker. So they got me like this little, I had my little apartment. I got a job. What was your job? I worked at this kind of like natural foods store. In New York or in Providence? This is in Providence, and then it was bought by Whole Foods. Sweet. So it was one of the first Whole Foods, like outside of Austin. I was in the basement, like cutting up vegetables and all that kind of stuff, prepping food for the deli. Doesn't sound so bad. And I'd do that, and then I'd go to work. I'd go to NA meetings, and that was it. That was my life. And then at some point, actually, it's kind of... Now I think about this, it's kind of cool that the social worker, my social worker, would sit down with like me and the other guys in the band, because I was like, I'm kind of like not even interested in living if I can't do music. Yeah. It was my only... People are always like, weren't you afraid you were going to die? And I was like, no, I kind of wanted to die. What I didn't... My biggest nightmare was having music taken away, like the ability to play music. So she kind of like helped me reconcile with those guys. And there was just a period of time of like, them tentatively sort of taking me back in and watching me to see if I was going to slip back into that world again. And I didn't. And that's when we really took off and had our best years. Yeah. And so this is what, 1996 or so now? 94 we did as a kind of test an all electronic EP. Because I remember when I saw you, I guess it was probably around 1995, you had some sort of thing on the stage that I didn't know what it was. Kind of like what I remember I saw Gibby Haynes with one time at Butthole Surfers had, like, it was I guess it was a theremin. It could have been, or some kind of, but it sounded more, I guess it was through a bunch of pedals or something. Yeah. I mean, the Butthole Surfers were a huge influence. I love those guys. Yeah. But yeah, I had kind of like modeled my setup and a lot of my guitar playing after Keith Levine of Public Image Limited. Okay. He like played this Travis Bean guitar, which was an aluminum neck guitar, and then with the V on the head. Right? Yeah. That was the Valeno, it was called. I had a bass for a little while. Yeah, they now worth insane amounts of money. I didn't like it. I couldn't balance it in my lap. Yeah, the Travis Bean that I played, the artist, the lower model, the head with the neck and head were so heavy you had to hold them up. Yeah, if you like let go of it, it would just. Yeah, it was ridiculous. Sorry. But I had this like. The higher up model that had it was balanced, so it wouldn't do that. You gotta pay extra for that. Yeah, now they're worth like, I don't know, $10,000. Oh, jeez. And then I had like a Prophet 600 keyboard, and then a Moog Rogue. And you played all that yourself? Yeah, and I had those two going through a
Korg stage echo. I use that kind of as the mixer and as a delay.
And so you would
and guitar. And I played all that stuff.
But so just this is like I'm also a dork.
Yeah.
So you would just like use it as a filter, or like put the drone on, or a sequence going, or because if you have
I wouldn't be playing guitar at the same time. We had songs that were like either bass drum and synth or bass drum and guitar.
So you would take the guitar off and set it down,
right,
and play one or two keyboards.
Which, by the way, back then was inconceivable. Like we were like this, like post-punk, pretty abrasive guitar band with synthesizers, which people didn't know what to do with it. And our singer Jay, who was like 6'3", would generally wear like, he had a red fringe leather jacket with matching chaps, and he'd strap on a Moog Liberation. Yeah. Stand-up Moog.
I mean, because if you did perhaps have a keyboard in your band, it would be like a Vox or a Farfisa or some type of organ. You would never have like a real... Maybe you would have a Moog, some micro Moog or something. Yeah.
It was really like... It was actually like a fairly confrontational thing to do. Like it at the time, it just... people couldn't make sense of it.
I guess that was the start of, I guess it would be like a post-rock or something you would call it.
Yeah.
Just to label it
which is the kind of thing that really turned me off from all of that music in general. Yeah. Ultimately.
Which is like the Tortoise and the
Yeah, I mean, I guess I can say it now. I really despised that kind of thing.
Well, I'm glad you can speak freely. It's nice. It's refreshing,
Yeah,
with no filter up. Yeah. No, and why not? I liked Tortoise at the time. I thought they were pretty good. But I did go see Six Finger Satellite.
Yeah.
But I really Dirty 3 was one of my.
Yeah, I loved them.
They're just really, I don't know what it was, but they had something going on there.
Yeah, they were great.
Yeah. Okay, so I don't know. So you had so Six Finger Satellite kept going after this. I thought it was done because they had kicked you out of the van.
Oh, I didn't know you knew about this.
No, you said earlier, that they let you out of the van or whatever.
Yeah, and then there was just no band. Like, I thought it was over.
That's what okay, so you had, like, you made up, you proved to them that you were off drugs.
Right.
And then you brought your keyboards on stage and the guy was wearing chaps.
He was always wearing chaps.
I'm just so summarizing.
He was always wearing chaps.
It helps me to get me back on track.
Right. And at the time, basically our whole the driving thing for the band at the time was like, we were just into being like super confrontational. And in like the hardcore world, punk and hardcore, the confrontation was kind of like just being loud and fast. And that was just that. It's such a dead end. So then we were like, well, what will rile people up or piss people off or just make them like scratch their head? And it's like, we really like disco. Like, sincerely loved disco records. Like, we drive around on tour listening to disco. So we incorporated like lots of disco elements, like especially drums, like, disco drum beats, which again now seems kind of cliche, but back then, like, nobody was doing that kind of thing.
There was no disco.
No, and our bass player was like, also wear like leather pants and like a mesh tank top, and
you're still on Sub Pop.
Yeah, still on Sub Pop. But it's funny now, like,
what else was on the roster at that time? Was there other kind of off?
Not like off kilter stuff. It was kind of like, I don't really know at the time, but
or Seaweed or something.
Yeah, Seaweed was one. See, I wasn't going to bring that up because I didn't know if you would know that.
I can't think of another band at that time. It was like Sunny Day Real Estate. Was around.
They were there.
Were they?
We
on
were
Sub Pop?
Always making fun of them. Yeah, they were in Sub Pop.
And they're now Foo Fighters or something, right?
Yeah, I mean, one of the guys is in Foo Fighters. See, this is the kind of stuff like I was like, I don't want to fucking
Miser,
do
were
this
they
anymore.
on?
Yeah.
No.
They were from Portland. We played with them a bunch too.
These are the other bands that are. The thing
they were in the. This is the stuff that was in the air.
Like the thing that comes to mind that I would say that I can think of that makes me I just think about Butthole Surfers or like.
Oh yeah.
What's the band from Oklahoma?
Who? They were good in the early days.
Yeah, I can't remember. Not Ween. Is it Ween? It's not Ween.
No. That band
not Mercury
with
Rev?
the guy who I can't. Wait, isn't it? No.
Is it
It's Wayne Coyne.
I can't remember the name.
What's that band called?
They're from Oklahoma.
They are.
And
I liked their very early stuff.
Yeah, and that's what I can think of. Like that time, it was kind of this like hippie with some electronics, and then you could kind of each song would be like a different genre, even.
Yeah.
What a weird,
Jesus Lizard.
What a weird time.
We toured endlessly with Jesus
but
Lizard.
Jesus Lizard was just badass.
They were fucking amazing. We toured with them quite a bit, a lot. They were my favorite, and still to this day, probably my favorite live band of all time.
They're pretty. I mean, I remember seeing them one time, and cause I'm from Texas. And they would always play in Austin, so we go drive from San Antonio with Josh, actually.
Yeah.
And I just remember one time his mom came to the show, and she's like standing on the stage with him, just like, oh, and he's still just like going for it. I can't imagine like doing that in front of my mother.
I mean, I did. There was a lot of practical. They were good practical jokers. Yeah. And David Yao was. I think he zeroed in on me because I seemed to be sort of unflappable. So, there was one time I think we were playing in Canada. And the shows were pretty big, like at the time.
But was Jesus Lizard on Sub Pop?
No, they were on Touch and Go.
Touch and Go.
I remember standing in the middle of the audience, and we had already played. Jesus Lizard were playing, and then David Yao would like always come off the stage and kind of like fuck with people and be rolling around the floor or whatever. I remember him like catching my eye in the middle of a crowd, and I was like, oh man, like something. He's up to something. Jeez, they're playing. I see him making his way towards me. I see like the crowd parting.
He's
and
gonna
he comes up
you.
to me. Yeah. And then he comes up to me, and I decided I'm just not gonna give in to any of his like whatever he's doing. So I stood there, and he's singing, and he like unbuttons my pants, pulls my pants down. I'm like, all right, I'm standing here with my pants down. I'm not gonna let him win this battle. And then, like, trying to give me a hand job in front of all of these
you might flinch.
people. And I never... it was like a battle of the...
the wits.
I don't know. I was going to say wits, but this doesn't seem like wits, really.
Battle of the...
I mean, he was always doing that stuff backstage. Like, he was always...
it seems a little...
making out with our singer or whatever.
Invasive person. It's a little much grabbing your privates.
I mean...
It's very Trumpy,
Yeah.
I don't know.
But we were, we had that kind of relationship, I guess.
Oh, I don't know. I don't really want anybody grabbing my privates.
It's interesting in front of groups of people.
So you did it often?
No, not in front of lots of people. But it is interesting. It is. I think people.
It's provocative.
Touring around the United States in a van back then, like the world was not gay friendly for one thing. Like especially when you left either of like the Northeast or the West Coast and got to the middle of the country, and then you're just pulling over for gas. Yeah. And then it's like, oh Jesus, like it felt really dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It was weird, but I didn't. Also, in a weird way, you didn't care, or like, you know what I mean? Like, it was a weird, like, I don't know how to describe it. It seemed.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. There wasn't the attention to this stuff. There wasn't even the language for this stuff, really.
Yeah, like we all knew Elton John was gay.
Yeah,
but we never talked about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I've been thinking that lately.
But
I was thinking like the Village People.
Yeah, it was huge. Like I would listen to it with my parents.
What were people thinking?
I don't know. It wasn't. That's what I'm saying. It wasn't. It was just something you didn't talk about, but it was like totally fine.
But you didn't talk about it because it wasn't because it wasn't okay. I don't think.
I don't know. It was like that's like I'm from Texas, and I have a different view of conservative. A conservative is like, leave me alone. Like if you're not bothering me, you can do whatever you want.
Which is a little more libertarian.
Yeah, so that's what I would think. Like Liberace's not bothering anybody, like.
Yeah.
Go do your thing, man. Like I enjoy your songs. I can sing along.
Yeah.
Like you get good church folk would listen to that. Like I don't know. It's weird. I can't.
Yeah.
I can't quite describe it.
Yeah, I know.
Because like I remember, I have 2 gay uncles, and I remember it was like a big deal that my parents were like I was probably like 14 or something, and my parents were like telling me like one of my uncles was gay, and I was like, yeah, I know. Like, yeah, and they like were like, so you could tell they were like nervous to tell me, like, I don't know. I'm not sure. It's a weird, a weird generation.
Which is why it's not really fair to judge that a lot of things through the lens of now that happened back then, because I mean, and it's impossible to explain to younger people. Like, why were we, I don't know. I think of like our band and like traveling around the country, and it's like, why was there, I don't know, was there secrecy about it? I didn't think of it as secrecy at the time. I don't know what it was. Like, we didn't even have language for this stuff, I guess. I don't know.
I don't know. It's not a, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either, but that's what I was doing in the 90s anyway.
Getting hand jobs in the crowd.
Yeah. And
backstage. Wow. Man, getting some action. So you had a good time, it sounds like, for a little while there.
Yeah, it was so fun.
It's still going on now, it seems like.
Which part?
Having fun.
Yeah. Even with the hand job, I was like, I just played I guess I don't say what goes on at those places.
But so I don't know. I mean, people, this is like probably, I don't know, people from my age group might know your these kind of days or whatever, but people know you from this DFA,
right.
Juan MacLean sort of thing. Like, how did you get to become Juan MacLean?
Well,
after this stuff, so there's, I guess, it takes like a 4 or 5 year period from that stuff, or
actually, not that long. Yeah, maybe 4 years. But I had, I like very dramatically and suddenly, like the worst possible way, like quit Six Finger Satellite. Like, we had finished our last album, which was called Law of Ruins, which Pitchfork gave something like a 9.6 or something, insanely high.
That was your peak.
Yeah, that was like our swan song last album, and then like had all these tours booked, start touring on that album, and I just quit. I just called up the other guys in the band and quit, and they had no idea this was coming, and I was like really so burnt out on all of it. And also,
did they continue without you, or
they tried to for a bit, and it just
didn't work.
But I was so disenchanted with that whole world of music. Like, like to me, like I got into it because you would go to a show and it would be like, go see the Butthole Surfers, and they're like lighting things on fire, and there's like naked people on stage, and everyone's taking acid, and it was just like insanity, and I loved it. That's what I loved. And then somehow sweaters always came up. I was like, people, I called it sweater rock. Like
Weezer or something.
Yeah, or just like, it just sounded
pavement.
Like people, like people in college wearing sweaters, strumming guitars. And I was like, this is not anything I was ever interested in. Like, this sucks. And in my way, my kind of like extreme reaction was just to quit. And I'm like, I was like, not only do I never want to play music again, like I don't even want to listen to music again. Yeah. That's the thing I literally thought. I was like, I'm just done. I don't want to. I don't want to have anything to do with listening to music.
But so, I mean, the thing is, like, you were, I guess you would call it successful. You're living off of music at this point.
Oh yeah,
and
for years,
doing okay, and probably most every show was pretty good. It's got to be an emotional ride. Like you're no longer like a normal person.
Yeah, I had never. It's funny you say that. I had never been a normal person, and now I was romanticizing being a normal person. I was like, I just want to be
like at home.
I'm old. I'm like 28 years old.
Yeah, I'm
like, I'm so old. So I went back to school, to college, got my degree, and I wanted to be an English teacher.
You went back to Providence.
I couldn't afford Providence College, so I went to Rhode Island College, which was like the public school.
That's probably a good choice.
Where I could make up my credits. It was like a commuter school.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to be an English teacher, and I was also interested in like psychology and like addiction treatment stuff. So I started working in treatment center for adolescents, which was pretty intense.
In Providence.
Yeah. And then here's where the real curveball comes in.
Got a girlfriend?
Yeah. And moved to very southern New Hampshire.
Southern? I've never been there.
It's actually very nice. And I started working in, a center for adjudicated youth. Teaching. Because I couldn't teach
at a regular school
because of legal issues,
like felonies or something.
Yeah, that kind of stuff that is frowned upon apparently in the public school system.
I guess so.
But in this system, they needed anyone they could get because nobody. It was the kind of place where like literally a teacher would quit at lunchtime like crying, like I just can't take this anymore. Yeah. It was a lot of like breaking up fights, which I kind of thrived in that.
I think that's like every school now.
Yeah. 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 It was a lot of...
How many years did you last at that? Like just till lunch.
Yeah. I was very quickly like the senior teacher there. I kind of liked it.
And what ages are the kids?
High school.
High school kids.
But they're all mixed in together.
Yeah.
So you'd have like
12 to 18.
A kid who's like a freshman who can't read, or a kid who's a freshman who's like a genius with an 18-year-old who can't read.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of fights, very little teaching.
Just trying to make it to lunch.
Yeah, just trying to make it to the end of the day.
Jeez.
And I was like, I was miserably depressed though.
Yeah.
And I realized in hindsight it was because I had given up like the one thing in life that I loved, which was music. Yeah. But at this time, like James Murphy, who a name you might recognize, he has this band LCD Sound System. He was the live sound engineer for Six Finger Satellite. I forgot that part. So he spent the 90s with me, like touring around in a van. And he and I were always allies. It was always like he and I kind of, because in those situations, like people form little alliances and that kind of thing.
You knew which way he was going to vote.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
You didn't even have to talk about it. I don't know him very well, so
yeah. But he was in New York, and a friend of ours, Tyler, had bought this building in the West Village and installed like there was a film production studio there. Then James in the basement built a studio that would become the DFA studio.
But it was like adult playground or something.
That's kind of what it was. Yeah, there was film, music.
But wasn't it called that for a little while before?
Adult playground.
Yeah. No.
It was called Plantain.
Oh, Plantain.
Yeah, but it was very much an adult playground. And so at some point,
but that's like 1998 or 7.
98, yeah. And James, and I'll always be very grateful for this. I think had it in his head like he thought it was like a crime that I wasn't doing music anymore. Like, I mean, it seems funny to say now, but I think for him, I was kind of living his dream in the 90s. Like he basically wanted to be doing exactly what I was doing.
Yeah.
So when I gave it all up, I think he just thought it was insane that I wasn't doing any kind of music anymore. So one day, was visiting in New York at the studio that would later become the DFA studio, and we just went for a walk. And there was like a pawn shop or something that had, we walked in and it had an Akai S1000 sampler, if you're familiar with that. Yeah. And he's like, yeah, I think they had like money for like the studio. He's like, I'm going to buy you some stuff. And they kind of like set me up with that sampler. I got the first Apple iMac computer.
Like the blue and white one.
Yeah, I think I had a red one.
Oh, wow, man, they paid extra.
And I had Juno, the Roland Juno 160.
106.
106, sorry. 106. Okay. I'm thinking of, because the next thing I was going to say was
Juno,
DBX.
It could be a Juno 60 also.
DBX 160 compressor that it ran everything through. And then I had a Waldorf micro Q.
Yeah, well, you're set, man.
And that was it. And some like shitty mixer that everything was running through. And the earliest version of Logic, which might not have been called Logic then. I don't know. Maybe it was. And I just started making music again. And I thought it was so fun. Because like I could, I had studios. I had a studio in Providence, like a real studio.
So you're visiting then, or you're
like
for the week or something?
Yeah, I would just come back and forth all the time.
Like during a spring break or something?
Yeah, and the weekend and that kind of thing. And then I just started making music, and I would burn CDs of the tracks I made and send them to James and Tim Goldsworthy, who was there at the time. And then eventually James and Tim were like, come to the studio in New York and we'll work on these 2 songs because these are really good. Like, let's make these into tracks. And those are the 2 that would become my first 12-inch on DFA.
And that's under Juan MacLean.
Yeah, I was in that studio working on the A side was By the Time I Get to Venus, and the B side was one that was called TG3X, and I was very much into Basic Channel at the time, and Detroit techno. And, it was maybe not the most imaginative take on those things because I was just getting into, like, music production. Yeah. And I was in the studio working on that one. It was very, like, Basic Channel, Detroit, very Detroit, underground resistance kind of influence. And then Marcus Lampkin was down the hall getting stoned in a different room. Marcus would later become Shit Robot. And he came stumbling into the studio where James and I were all bleary-eyed and stoned, and he just looked at me and said, like, in his Irish accent, like, "Oh, who do you think you are, Juan MacLean?" Like, referencing Juan Atkins. Yeah. And we all started laughing, and then James was like, "That's it. That's going to be your name."
Yeah.
And I was like, I like, at this point, like, I'm just kind of like going along with all this stuff, And then James was like, you know what? We'll put a "the" in front of it because it'll just make it sound like more important or something. I mean, really, I just kind of, and then it's weird because from that day on, everyone called me Juan.
Yeah, I know it's weird.
It's believe me, it's weird for me.
Thank you for telling me the story.
Because, I mean, everyone.
Because before that, you probably got every single Die Hard joke ever.
Oh yeah, I still do. And that's how I became Juan. The only people who call me John are like
old friends.
My mother, really old friends, but there was stuff like, I had an old Providence friend come by the DFA building, ring the buzzer, because I had seen him on the street. He was like working construction on the street, and I was like, "Come by the studio. I'll be there, and we'll, whatever." And he rings the buzzer. He's like, "Yeah, I'm here for John."
They're like, "Who?"
And they're like, "Who?" I'm like, "John." They're like, "Yeah, there's no John here. You must have the wrong." And they went through this whole thing and sent him away.
Jesus. Oh, that's interesting. I know.
Yeah.
I know Marcus.
Oh, you know Marcus?
Yeah.
He's a lovely guy. He's awesome.
Josh and I used to play on Friday nights at Plant Bar.
I didn't know that.
We opened for Marcus and Dom.
Wow.
We did 8 to 12 like Friday nights for years.
I never knew that. And Josh?
Yeah.
How did I not know this?
Yeah. Josh JDH.
Wow.
I need to get him on here. I grew up with him, so we.
I know, it's crazy. That,
yeah. That's what I'm saying. It's weird that we don't know each other. We have like a really small
Yeah,
because I had gone. I was living in San Francisco before I came to New York. I came to New York in '99, and my roommate was friends with the Rapture guys, which was pretty much just at the time Luke and Vito.
Right.
And Zach, who you might know, he ended up working with Maddie, who was the bassist at Angelica's Kitchen.
Yeah.
And so we were all kind of friends, whatever, and somehow my roommate was like a really talker. He could like get in anywhere. We would end up at the guy's house on 13th Street and also at the studio.
At Tyler's house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like sitting there.
I practically lived there. Yeah.
Yeah, with like Tim Sweeney and I didn't know who any of these people were. In like 1999, I had just moved
Tim
here,
was in college.
like with my skateboard, like and then Luke and I remember sneaking down into the studio and like playing all the guitars and then James Murphy comes down and like yells at us for like moving the microphones around.
Right.
And then Luke just gets out of it the way he does. And so I mean I have no idea how I ended up in these situations and and it's just like one step away. You were probably there. What I mean?
Literally in the
same room.
That's funny. We probably had met.
And like I mean we played like every Friday for I don't know how long.
I didn't
like
know that, so I was probably there, and you were. I don't know. I forget all this stuff.
And I was there like when the one time when they got shut, like Plant Bar got shut down for the cabaret law. Like they came in and kicked me out, and they were going to arrest Luke.
Yeah,
and
of all people.
Yeah, Luke was. They were like because he was the most high up. He was the most in charge, and
he was the tallest.
And Dom ended up coming down and taking it. While they arrested him. So I mean that's my. I didn't really know the DFA guys, but somehow I ended up I knew Luke and Vito. I knew Luke mostly, just from I don't know where, but he was friends with one of my friends.
Those were like
it was a weird time because there was
formative
money.
Time.
There was like money,
lots of money,
because it was like the first wave of the like Silicon Valley. There was just money.
There was money around. Like I signed on the heels of 2 12-inches. I released 2 that year.
Yeah.
On DFA, I signed what I got like a $50,000 advance initially,
Jesus.
but a $250,000 publishing deal.
Holy shit!
Which I then got out of, but I did get a $50,000 advance, which
that's like unheard of.
Allowed me to, but back then it was quite common, and it allowed me to quit my job,
retire.
I quit my job because I was like, that was at the time teaching. It was 2 years salary.
I think if I got $50,000, I would just stop. I would move to the country and like buy a house and work at a gas station. Or something.
Yeah, but those were the.
You could still like.
Those were the days.
Like other music was selling CDs like music. Crazy or Tower Records. And all that stuff.
And I immediately I was signed to DFA, but had a deal with EMI in Europe, and they would give me like, for my first album, like a $75,000 advance,
Jesus
or something,
Christ.
which I didn't see most of, like DFA took, but
yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, it's just crazy to me. Like I can't
spent on ecstasy or something.
Now you're like a, you get $500.
Yeah,
and you're like, yes.
I mean, it's wild. It's I mean, we're jumping way ahead.
You can jump as far as you
be kind
want.
of non-linear about it. In those days, there was money everywhere.
Yeah.
And there just weren't as many DJs, of course. And now it's kind of shocking.
Yeah. No, I mean, I remember I had never even once thought about it being a DJ in my life, like ever. And I moved to New York. And I'd always collected records, and then my roommate ended up being like, "There's this New York Film Festival. They need a DJ. You have a lot of records.
Yeah.
Can you DJ?" And so I just started DJing.
Yeah,
I had a lot of records.
Well,
it wasn't like I'm gonna DJ.
I had never considered I had never had the opportunity to DJ outside of my bedroom, but I did. After my first 12-inch came out, I started getting offers to DJ for like $500. I was like, fucking $500? That's how much I make in a week.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to do this. And then, of course, I mean, obviously we were only playing vinyl. So I mean, I was fucking terrible.
Yeah.
Like my early DJ gigs, like, I had always like played at home, whatever. But then, especially playing vinyl, to be thrust into like being in command of like a sound system in a club, I was not prepared for that.
Yeah, you had to
and I was so bad.
You have to like go to Europe or like have a European teach you how to DJ.
Oh God, Marcus taught me how to DJ.
Yeah. But he's a European or Irish. Does that count?
And I remember like, I don't know, really, or like maybe it was the late 90s or something, going to, what was the place where he and Dom had a residency? The really like proper like club, Central Fly.
Oh geez.
Yeah, exactly.
But that was like in Dumbo or something weird, wasn't it?
Not Dumbo. I thought it was in Manhattan.
I can't remember.
Yeah, it was a. But I remember going there and seeing Slam play. You know Slam?
No.
The Glass, is it called Glaswegian? Aren't they Glaswegian? Techno guys, amazing. Like Positive Education, you know that track?
No.
Oh man, I'm not trying to shame you, but
it's okay.
It's like legendary.
Say it again?
Thing you should know. Slam, SLAM.
No, I don't know.
One of their great tracks was Positive Education.
I don't know it.
Anyway, these guys are like in between. I don't want to out there. I'll leave the cocaine part out. I look up and they have like fucking 3 records playing at the same time, like casually, and I'm like, it just blew my mind.
Yeah.
I was like, how, rotary mixer, the whole thing. Somehow that was a really defining moment for me. And I was like, I want to do what those guys are doing. Like, I'm struggling to play like
one record after
2
the other.
records like after another. Like, and these guys are just kind of casually like, I'm sure it wasn't casual, but what they were doing was so far beyond what I was doing. And I just was like, that's what I want to do. And it really, it's a moment in time that I still identify as like just set me off on a path of like, I want to do something way more than what I'm doing.
Yeah, it's okay to like DJ, or like it opened your mind to it or something. Or
I
never even because for me, you would think of a DJ or techno or all that stuff in the 90s. You would think of this like junglist, candy raver.
Yeah.
Like awful drum and bass.
It was bad.
Yeah.
Like I think people don't realize that was a big part of the motivation for DFA, was like the options seemed really bad.
Yeah.
Like I remember James and I going to, maybe it was Centrifly, some club where we were on the guest list, like late 90s.
All that stuff gets mixed up. I can't remember.
Me too.
Limelight
I
or
don't know. It was some proper club, and we're showing up, and there was like a long line, and we're in jeans and t-shirts. And it's even now as I'm saying this, it sounds so funny to say it. Like, it sounds ridiculous, but everyone was so dressed up in the line. And I remember people just looking at us like, are these fucking homeless guys? Like, they're clearly not coming into the club. But it was that kind of scene of like people getting dressed up and going to clubs, and just the music seemed really bad and uninteresting. I don't know. I'm sure there was good like house and techno at the time, and I just wasn't aware of it.
I don't know either.
You know, but that was why. We like making my first record. We were kind of like, I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
I cared so little about what was going on in those worlds, and I think that's what made us be able to do what we did.
Yeah. For me, it was a weird, what made me to go to like this dance music or electronic music or whatever was that like, it's really hard to be in a band.
Yeah.
And like,
that was my whole thing.
These other things you can do by yourself, you know, like I can have the rhythm section, I can have a bass line going the whole time, and I can do a couple other things live over it, you know, like
that was my whole thing.
And
like,
I don't have to like get along with these other people and drugs and whatever. And
because what I was used to was like being in a band it was like being married to 3 other people.
Yeah.
And it seemed fucking impossible. And I was like, I can sit in this room by myself with this cool synths and drum machines and do it by myself.
And it was cheap.
It was so cheap. I mean, Prophet 600 I paid $50 for.
Yeah, I mean, it was...
my Moog Rogue I paid $50 for.
Yeah.
At a Prophet 5 that I paid $150 for.
Yeah.
That was a stretch.
You had to take it out of your advance.
Yeah. But those were the days, and it was like...
I never did that good, but it was close.
Everyone around DFA, like, taking ecstasy and, like... But listening to, like, Liquid or something.
Like a Gang of Four or something.
Yeah, like, all that kind of stuff. And I mean, it's a little embarrassing and naive, but it was,
I thought that time, I've talked about this before, is that I like how open it was. You could, it was the same time, they would play Old Dirty Bastard. Right. And, I remember one of the most, like, you remember it was like a show, it's like Japanther and Old Dirty Bastard, like, and it's just like the fact that can happen at a fancy club where Paris Hilton is there and Jay-Z or whatever. Yeah. Like, I like that. It was no one cared, It was like, you would go out, like, okay, it's Tuesday, where are we going to go? And then every kind of person that had the means to go out or wanted to go out would go to this place.
And there was no...
I don't know.
Okay, here, before I go down this road...
Uh-oh. I'll stop you if you get too negative.
I think there's an argument when you start presenting arguments against things like social media and and any kind of new technology. There's a stance that's like, that's your viewpoint because you're older, and it preempts any kind of like
validity.
Yeah, like, the idea that there is actually a valid argument that these things maybe aren't the best things to have around. But like, I think of the early days of DFA, and I won't say who it is. Obviously, somebody took ecstasy for the first time at a DFA party, and it was kind of like. Apparently, I wasn't there, but very endearingly running around, like, hugging everybody and telling them they loved them and dancing. And
some crying. Maybe.
Dancing and maybe crying. And, now you can't... people would be taking pictures and posting them on social media, maybe, and it would be really embarrassing. Or you wouldn't put yourself in that situation because somebody... This is true for me. Somebody might take your picture and post it.
But I think you could say, just to be devil's advocate, is there's now a shift towards these parties don't take your phone out, like this. This kind of thing.
Like, I played at a very well-known venue in Berlin that has a sex club in the basement, and I played in the sex club in the basement, which was a huge honor. And there were things I did that
you wouldn't do anywhere else.
Absolutely not, because I knew nobody was going to take my picture.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I really like that.
Freedom.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it's a hard, you can't be mad at people, you know what I mean? Like, because I don't know. I mean, my thing is that these people are born at different times. They're younger than you are. They didn't choose when they were born. This is what the cards they were dealt with. This is what, the tools they use to do the things they do. I don't think you can be upset with that. I think you just have to, like, understand it and deal with it or not, or I don't know.
No, and to be clear, for me right now, this is actually... I'd say I'm having the best time I've ever had, like, DJing and being in clubs.
Yeah. Why is that?
It's a few things that actually, like, the advent of digital DJing for me, which was only a couple years ago when I made the switch from vinyl to the CDJ.
The stick.
Yeah. I have to say... I love it, like, way more than playing vinyl. And there's this whole thing that's like, if someone wants to play all vinyl, that's totally fine.
Yeah, do whatever you want.
For years, that was my favorite thing, and I couldn't imagine... when I would try to play all digital sets, I would just be bored to tears. But then I kind of like had this revelation. I don't remember who I saw. Somebody who had done a lot of preparation, like in record box and that kind of thing. And it really like revolutionized my DJing. Like I just play in a way that is so much better and more fun for me now. Yeah. Yeah.
It's a pretty cool. CDJs are cool.
Yeah, I love it so much.
I recently kind of switched back to just pretty much playing records.
Yeah.
But just because I'm not traveling though. But I don't because it's easier for me because when I do digital, it takes so much preparation because you have to rip all your records. You got to like learn them and label them and tag them. And I get so many new records that I can't keep up lately. So I've just been playing records, but it's more of like it's kind of like the same reason I like the SB12. You know, you got limitations. You got this much. This is what you're going to use. Otherwise, it's so wide open. Like, because I mean, if I started you can, I don't know how many you can bring your 3 terabyte drive and plug it in.
That is the problem though.
Yeah. Like it takes preparation and I often don't have enough time to prepare properly. So I guess that's why.
That is the thing that I kind of miss is now I feel like there's such an onslaught of new music that I don't know the tracks in the way that I used to. Like, remember you used to carry around a record bag. Yeah. And you'd have like your little sections. You knew where things are.
I'm gonna play this into this into this.
You'd put the records that went together in the same little like plastic sleeves. Yeah. You'd know that like, oh, at the end of this one, after the last breakdown, there's no hi-hat, so it's a good place to mix out of that one into this one. They're in the same key. All that stuff. And you would play that like set for months or even a year. Yeah. And now it's like every month, like I have an entirely different set.
I get stuck. Like when I was traveling a lot, I would know what works. So you're like, yeah, I'm gonna play this into this. Yeah. You know, like you have your like, if you have like I gotta bang it out for my 2 hours at this festival. You have your like, and then you kind of fall into that doing that same thing every time. And I feel like sometimes with records, there's like all these room for mistakes. So you're like, oh, where's this stupid record? I can't find it. Or I don't know. I mean, they're both great. I just recently the one thing that I think is detrimental to not playing records is that we're gonna lose this. It's a culture. There's like the record store, the record label, the distributor. This like that I worry about. People like Theo Parrish when they say like, like if you run a record label, you should play records. Like,
I always thought that was weird.
Yeah.
I don't anymore because I don't notice it so much. But when I was playing records and I would play with DJs who were the heads of labels, and they weren't playing records, I was like, what are we really doing here?
I don't know.
You know what I mean? I was like, it's a weird. In general, it's a weird thing. Like you sit in a studio making a track digitally, and then you send it to a pressing plant where it's pressed to vinyl, and then you go out and DJ and play this digital copy, or worse, like rip that record to digital and then play it digitally. Like, what is that?
But you can also have the other one is like, why do I have to put out a record for it to be for me to be a legitimate artist?
A record or a track?
A record.
Like vinyl record.
Yeah.
And I've always compared it to gold being the thing that legitimizes a currency. Yeah. It's like a digital only track somehow has no validity, but if you back it up with a vinyl release, then it's valid.
It's weird.
I mean, I'm not saying I think that. I'm saying that
it's just how it is.
I think that has changed recently, though.
Yeah, I mean, I can't. I have a label and I stopped. I haven't put out a record this year.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of. I
don't know. I still like them though.
I do too. Yeah.
So I don't know. What do you mind? I'm gonna go I have to pee.
So what happens?
I'm just gonna go pee and I'm gonna leave it recording. So don't pick your nose or anything. It's gonna be on.
So do I talk?
If you want,
edit it out later.
I can edit it out later.
Yeah.
If you want to keep talking, or if you want to go pee too, you can.
I'm good.
I think it'll just help me relax a little bit.
Yeah.
I'll be back in about a minute and 30 seconds.
Good luck. Oh, really? How did it go?
Not bad.
Oh, good. Everything came out all right?
Yep. I had a moment of clarity. I just remembered something. Not my pee. I had another run-in with you before we knew each other. One of my first tours in Europe. I had just put out, I don't even know, maybe a record or two or something, and I was at a festival in Graz, Austria. Graz, Graz.
I was there,
and I'm pretty sure you were there. It was I was with Wolfram.
Oh yeah,
and we were at the hotel breakfast, and you were sitting with Marcus.
Wow.
And I just remembered this. I had completely forgotten about it. It was like it was one of the first times I like had traveled and like gotten paid for a gig in Europe.
Huh.
And we sat down with you, and then I knew Marcus from Plant Bar.
Right. And
so we sat there with Wolfram, and I was with DJ Overdose too. I don't know if.
And it was okay though.
Yeah, I think you guys were tired.
Was it? Were we at breakfast? Like, okay.
It was like the breakfast in the hotel,
but here's the thing,
like waiting for your flight or whatever.
Okay, here's the thing about breakfast at the hotel.
It's gross.
Typically, if I'm at breakfast at the hotel, it means that I have arrived from. I have been up the night before, which is a classic, like, cliche DJ thing. But
I think you were waiting for your pickup or something.
Okay, because that's always a thing where I'm like walking into the hotel at like 9 a.m. and I've been out all night.
And you just like get your stuff and leave.
No, I'm like, I'm hungry. Do I want to go sit with those families over there? And I feel like, because I'm usually, how do you put it?
Inebriated.
Not inebriated, not alcohol. I'm not a big alcohol person, but
something. Yeah,
something. And I'm like, everybody knows.
I don't think they care.
I don't think they know, though.
As long as they can't smell you, if you don't smell bad, I think if you're fresh, I think it's okay.
Yeah.
When you smell like an ashtray in a bar,
No, I don't. I mean, bars don't smell like smoke anymore, so.
No.
But.
Some places.
But.
All right. Well, I just had that.
Anyway.
I had that flashback. That was another because I thought I had remembered all the other times.
I mean, someone said something to me the other day about something somewhere, and I was like, "No, I've never been in that country. That wasn't me." Well, and then they're like, "No, that was you," and they called it up. They Googled it, and I have zero recollection.
Pull up the flyer.
Yeah, like it makes me a bit sad. Like I wish I had. If I had to do it all over again, I would have, at the very least, kept a sort of diary where I wrote down at least every place that I was. Like, even just a brief, like, I'm in, like, Schittsburg, Germany.
I've never been
to
Schittsburg.
Played a festival.
Welcome to Schittsburg.
Whatever, on this date.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But there's so much stuff, like, I just don't remember.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I just brought that up. But I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's a hard life. Like but that's what I'm saying. So the thing that is weird too is that the moment before we were talking about 2001 or whatever.
Yeah.
And then now it's 2020, but those last 20 years don't even matter. It's like the same year. Like nothing really.
Man.
There were some ups and downs, but it's pretty much been the same.
It's
right. You travel and you play. I mean, it's changed, but
I don't know. Like from my perspective, it's I think it's changed quite a bit. Weirdly, like, well, for one thing, I should say, my philosophy has always been that I wanted to have a career trajectory that I'm not sure how to do this with the camera, that went like this instead of like anything that it seemed like hype or getting like, oh, if you do this thing, this will get you lots of exposure or something, like then I'm turned off by it and I don't want to do it. Like I've always been like, I just want to do this forever, and I just want to have a very slow ascent, and that's what I've done.
And how did you do that? Just by not doing the hype things?
I think so. And yeah, I mean, seriously, like there are sort of like some specific examples that I haven't had enough wine to name names, but younger DJs that I've known who became very big, like very quickly. I've been like, I know right now it feels like this is the rest of your life.
Yeah,
but it's not.
Yeah.
And be careful, because how you treat people now, it's going to come back. You will have to face these people again, like basically on your way down.
Yeah.
But they don't believe it.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, to have that kind of like quick hype and ascent, if you're huge in 1 year and you're playing everywhere and you're in every like media outlet, you can't, there's literally nowhere to go but down. And for better or worse, when the sort of public sees that, people sort of check it off of like, as like, oh, he's had his, or she has, they've had their time.
Yeah.
And it's done.
It's rough out there.
It's really rough. It's so rough. It's really rough.
It's a hard life.
It is. And I don't know if, I mean, I think in passing, I kind of talked about this the other day when we were talking about this. Like, social media, my New Year's resolution is just, I'm terrible. I'm terrible at social media. Like, I need to put more effort into it.
But what does that mean?
At the very least, telling the world that I'm playing gigs. Like I'll go to Japan for 4 days and play 3 times, and you wouldn't know if you looked at my social, because I don't post about it. Well, okay, I just released on DFA a compilation LP of all of my 12 inches from 2012 to now, with a couple of unreleased things. And then on BBC, like BBC 6 made it their album of the day. I on that day, I could have gone on all of my social media outlets and posted, hey, today's the day that my album is album of the day on BBC, and I just didn't do it.
I mean, that's a thing where is it the artist's job to promote? Like, but that's kind of been the model. It's like the Vice model, where the free content or whatever. It's like that.
Yeah.
The artist is promoting the party because they have more followers.
Right.
But I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't think it's the artist's job, So you shouldn't feel like you have to do that, is what I think.
It's not that I don't even think it. It's just I don't feel it. Like, at the end of the day, like, I just love music.
Yeah.
I don't love taking pictures of myself and posting them online. Like, I'm not even opposed to it. I just don't think of it, and I don't like it. I don't know. I
think some people like to do that, and then they should do that. I think the thing is that we should give the audience a lot more credit, is that they can sniff it out. They know if you're like being authentic or not. Like, if you're doing you and they like it, then it's fine. You know what I mean? Like, but if it, like, some people, they're really hyped and they had a good time and they want to tell everybody thank you and I had a great gig and here's my selfie and here's my picture, and that's what they do, and it works for them. But I don't think that has to be what everybody does, But
there is a minimum. There's just a minimum that I don't do. And like,
you should probably post when you have a gig.
But here's the thing. I explained to a promoter the other day. Someone, actually like a month ago, they're like, can you please post more about this gig? And I think I was just like in the wrong mood or something. And when I saw them in person, I was like, look, here's the thing. I think nobody ever goes to a gig because they were on the DJ's like social media platform and saw that they were playing.
I don't think that's true, though.
Really?
No.
I think that I go out if I'm home I go out. Like, I still, maybe more than ever, like, I love going out and dancing to my favorite DJs. It's still, even at my age, my favorite thing to do.
And you're like 70, right?
That's 68. But I know about the gigs because I
look for it.
Look at the club, the venues that I like. I look at their websites.
I think that's a generational thing.
Oh, really?
Like you were waiting for Tuesdays when the Village Voice came out. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I'm still waiting.
You're like looking at the listings for emos or whatever.
I do, yeah. I look at Good Room.
Yeah,
that's my number one.
But where are you looking at it on social media?
I look on Facebook. I look at Good Room's lineup.
Yeah,
you know, and then I'll look at Nowadays. I love Nowadays.
Yeah, I never go there. It's too far for me.
It seems far, but that's like the ridiculous thing about living in New York.
Yeah,
because
that's kind of like London, though. I think London's the same.
Yeah, but it's not. My thing is like I'll take the subway there. I take an Uber home.
Yeah, I can't even afford that. Well, I work every day. I can't.
But there are times that I've left Nowadays. Well,
on the train.
No, I was going to say something about there's a thing for me about like there's a thing I'm trying to reconcile about age, I think, but also that like okay, if I go to Nowadays, generally many, if not most of the people who are there like know who I am.
Yeah. And
it makes me feel a little weird when, say, I have taken something and I'm standing outside of I'm standing outside of Nowadays like calculating like, is that a car driving down the street? Let alone what the license plate of the Uber is. And there's that line outside of Nowadays and everyone's looking at me, you know, and I'm like, how do you get inside that thing?
I don't know.
You know?
I don't know. That's that's your problem.
It is my problem. And also taking
I don't know if they do you think I guess you're probably right, but they probably also have their own problems. They do. They're probably also wondering how to get into the car or how to sleep with whatever person or you know.
I'm just going through this age thing that honestly, like, I had talked to you know Justin Carter.
Yeah.
Who owns Nowadays.
Yeah.
He's a good friend of mine. And I was at
but he's probably about my age. I'm 42.
He is, yeah.
Yeah.
But I was at I think Avalon Emerson, one of my favorite DJs. And, you know, we're friends. And so
with Justin or Avalon?
Avalon, both of them. But I went to see her play at Nowadays. I just, you know, had fun with her. And
let's do these other, finish that and we'll get the other one going.
In Berlin. And I came back from Berlin and then I was like, oh, Avalon's playing. I got to go see her play. So I go to Nowadays and, you know, I had taken
something,
a bunch of mushrooms, I think, something like that. And I'm at Nowadays and I'm dancing and like, she's just, I'm like, this is one of the best DJ sets I've heard all year. And I'm having so much fun. And then I look up and I realize like I'm surrounded by people like half my age at least. And nobody says anything or nobody even puts off the vibe that I shouldn't be there. But I'm going through this thing of, I don't know. Like, is it weird?
First of all, they probably think you're about 38.
Right. And like I said, like, yeah, like a lot of the people probably know who I am. But you know what it is? Like, these articles keep popping up. I notice especially from the UK that's like, is it okay, you know, raving over age 35? And I'm like, what? 35?
As long as you're paying your rent and you're not hurting anybody, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah. But I was telling Justin about this and he's like, you know, do we need to bring this into the sort of like into the realm of these like safe space rules, like
ageism?
And it did make me think, like, other places.
I don't think they're judging you. I think.
Yeah, it's just me. It's just in my head.
It seems like you have you're self-aware. It's part of being human, you know. It's like what separates us from like a starfish or whatever.
When I take my dog to the dog park, the dog's not walking around like, man, I'm fucking 8. Look at all these 3-year-old dogs.
Yeah, they're looking at my butt.
It's so much energy. I will say that I really enjoy, as much as like going to see someone like Avalon. Like, I mean, this is kind of disjointed talk.
That's okay.
But when people are doing open to close sets, as a DJ, it's my favorite thing to do. But as a patron, my favorite thing is to show up at 10 o'clock. When they're starting, because I love the music that people play in the beginning.
Yeah, it's always like their favorite records.
Yeah, and they're slow.
Yeah.
Weird. But I wish it was okay to play. I just played Mexico, where I think kind of like the sound down there is this very slow, like chuggy, druggy kind of thing, which is my favorite thing. And we were playing from 11 p.m. to like 7 a.m. and started at like 90 BPM. By 2 a.m., it was still at like 110 BPM.
Yeah.
And for me, at least as an older person with an older body, I can dance indefinitely to 110 BPM. But when I go to these things and it's like, they're really banging it out. Like I have a 3-hour threshold.
Yeah,
my body just can't take it.
I don't ever. Yeah, I'm usually sitting down.
Maybe I should try that.
I just sit down on the side. I like to watch. I like to dance too, but I can't. I work quite a bit, so I don't. I have to like prepare. You know.
Yeah, it feels to me like running a marathon.
Yeah. I'm the only time my dancing I like vocal stuff and it doesn't really get played. You know, I want to hear the hits, the hit song that I want to sing along to. Like somebody plays Diana Ross or something like that. That'll get me going. You know, like
really,
not like, you know, unless there's a few instrumental. You know, like somebody plays like Infinity Game 1 or you know, something like super classic. But a lot of the stuff doesn't really. I enjoy listening to it and watching and all this, watching the stuff. Yeah. I like the sideline.
I like, as a patron and as a DJ, but I like the sort of like head down, dark, lots of smoke machine. Yeah. Heady, in your own world kind of.
I mean,
vibe.
My first experiences with clubs in San Antonio, they would have like these like goth new wave clubs.
That was mine too.
And I would remember you would go in there and you couldn't even see your hand in front of your face. Yeah. Like you would just be like scared you're gonna bump into something or somebody. Yeah. Like, and I don't know. I can't remember. Sometimes it happens here, but it's been a while, you know, like, and that seemed to be like the standard for a while. Like you would just be in a dark room just with the music blaring and like, you know, you could see about 6 inches of, you know, you couldn't even, you'd be like, you know what I mean? You kind of have that like weird slow walk where you're like trying not to bump into stuff.
Yeah. You don't know which direction you're walking.
Yeah. It gets, I don't know.
See, I enjoy disorientation. I think that's like, I enjoy, like, in a drug sense, like psychedelics are my sort of mainstay. Mm-hmm. I know a lot of people, it's not the thing that they like, but I kind of like putting myself out there where I am disoriented and kind of like out of my body and don't know where I am and being lost in music.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I would love to be able to go to a club and not have to talk to people.
Yeah, that's...
Like I just want to like get fucked up and like stand in the corner and like maybe you see some weird person you don't even know and you're just like, hey, or like have some weird conversation about whatever. But I don't want to like talk about whatever new release or party, whatever. Like
if I can use that prompt as a chance to rant about something.
Oh, go ahead.
recently I was at Nowadays for one of my favorite DJs. Do you know Powder?
Yeah.
Yeah. So she plays like very heady, kind of like can get into these really like. I feel like it's a very like heady, lost in the music kind of DJ.
She's very, very melodic, I would say.
And melodic too. But on this night, it was this kind of stuff. It was very like journeying kind of DJing. And I'm with her boyfriend, Five, who is a DJ.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We're just dancing and let's just say in the zone. And there's so much talking that I thought I was going to lose my mind. And I can't not track like people's conversations. Like, it's like, oh yeah. You know, and then last Saturday night, like I went to the blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, what are you doing here? Like, and it was just this din of people talking at 4 a.m, like on the, like in the middle of this, like really like transcendent DJ set.
Cocaine.
That's okay. Thank you for saying that, because that's exactly what I chalked it up to. And I was like, it's cocaine, I think. And I was so angry and like mad that people were kind of like ruining my experience. And it really makes me crazy. I want there to be no talking.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. This. I don't know if this is too much of a change of subject, but I have
That's okay.
I can also hear everything in the club. Do you have that auditory? Like,
yeah.
and you'll be DJing and you can like hear what the crowd is saying.
Yeah.
And
I hate that.
At some point, I was like, I can hear what people are saying when I'm DJing. Like, oh, blah blah blah. You know, like they're talking shit about you or whatever. And at one point, I can't decide if I'm hallucinating, like if this is like a paranoia thing, and I'm just like, this is like auditory hallucinations, or if I'm really hearing these people talk shit.
Yeah.
And I think I'm really hearing them talk.
It probably, yeah. And
but that's the same thing as like if you're in the crowd dancing and you hear these people talk, it's distracting.
Very distracting.
And take it outside or go on the by the bar or something.
But especially if you're...
But you can't tell people what to do. That's
the dilemma. Yeah. That's when I was talking to Justin, and Justin was like,
you just got to tune it out.
Do we make it part of like the policy? And I'm like, on the one hand, you guys already have all these rules when you walk in, and there's part of me that is very turned off by that, because I'm like, you should be able to do whatever you want to do. On the other hand, I do think that people need to be like trained in how to act. And Justin brought up this good point that's like, okay, you walk into Nowadays and you get the speech about like no leering, no, touching people, all this kind of stuff. And he's like, it just plants a seed that these things are not okay, because there are lots of people who don't understand that these things are not okay. And I kind of land in favor of that, because maybe it's cynical, but I'm like, people are idiots, you know? I don't know. And I'm very interested in this kind of like like substances in those spaces is a thing that I'm also really interested in.
Drugs.
Yeah, like, because it's part of the experience. And I'm like, cocaine, I do think like people should be able to do whatever they want, but I think it ruins a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not cocaine. I don't know. I don't like it. I don't like being around people that do it.
Me too.
But there's some people that can do it and they're not annoying.
Definitely. I have friends that can do it and they seem to use it like caffeine. Like they use it to just kind of like keep going.
And even some people I know can do speed and not be annoying.
Right.
Typically Europeans, and I don't know what kind of speed they're taking, but I'm not a...
It's a very German thing.
Yeah.
But I was playing a warehouse party in L.A., and playing after me was Jennifer Cardini, who's one of my favorite DJs, actually, and a friend. And so I ran out to the dance floor and was like dancing, and let's just say I'm in the zone. That'll be code from now on.
All right. Okay, I got it.
That I've taken a lot of ecstasy. And then a guy comes up to me and is like, hey, like Juan, blah, 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 like a big fan, like, that was amazing, like you just said, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, cool, man, like, thanks, I'm like dancing, and I'm like, just like, and my eyes closed, and I'm so happy, and I'm like, like clearly, and then he keeps talking, and I'm giving off every, like, social cue that's like, I don't want to be talking right now. but he's ignoring all of it. And so I start physically moving away from him and he's just talking in my ear until there's a point where I'm like, I can't move anymore, and realize I was up against a wall. He's literally like in my ear, and I'm pressed against a wall.
I think it's okay to tell people that you don't want to talk. And I think that's probably what you should have done.
I do appreciate. I was at when I was playing at Berghain. I was at Panorama Bar, and someone was about to play. I don't remember who it was, but I was putting myself in the zone with a friend who was going into a different zone, and so I was like a little excited, and I was like, "Oh man, like this is gonna be great." When blah blah blah, and he just turns to me, and goes, "Man, I can't talk right now." And I was like, "Okay," not offended. I was so impressed. I was like, "That is the greatest thing."
Yeah, I think you can tell people that. I think it's okay. It's just you're a sensitive guy,
I am, and especially auditorily. Is that a word?
Yeah.
Like I can't not track conversations or like listen intensely to sound.
I have that problem like at restaurants and stuff.
Yeah, like
I get so distracted. I'll be like sitting there, and then I'll be like, "Oh wait, there's trouble over there."
Yeah, and
I don't know what that is.
It feels like a new thing to me. Like all these people talking in a club on a dance floor. Maybe it's not new. I don't know. It feels new to me.
I don't know. I don't know. I had the one thing. Regis did a podcast. So it hasn't been come out yet, but he was talking about this thing. We have these like generational shifts. And he was saying, talking about a thing that he said that struck me. We're talking about like different generations and stuff, and he said there's gonna be a generation that just says fuck you and kicks you out, and you should just accept that. And
kicks you out of what?
No, just you're not cool anymore.
Oh, yeah.
But and it was like, you spend this whole time like I'm gonna stay cool with the kids, and I'm relevant, and I want to understand how it all works. But it's always he pointed out that it's always been like that. There's been like these shifts, and it's bound to happen at some point. Like I don't know. I'm not trying to offend you or anything, but it was just a thing like that I'd never thought about before. Like
I think about it all the time, but I think that's a relic of past generations. Like with my parents' generation, like the baby boomer generation, they were the first ones where there was truly a generation gap.
Yeah. But this is another thing we talk about with him, is they were the birth of the teenager also.
Right, of youth culture.
Yeah.
But now, I think, in a healthy way, there's a real integration of like young and old.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not looking to be cool.
Yeah.
I'm just looking
to go out and dance and have a good time.
Exactly. Like, and why should you give that up? Like, okay, if you stick around this world, this like music world long enough, what you see is like, in general, people in their 20s get into this kind of music like house or techno. They have their fun. They get what we'll call like a real job. They stop going out. They're done.
Yeah.
I just don't see it that way. For me, it's the most important thing in my life. It's like literally the thing that I live for. Like without it, I'm not really interested in living.
Yeah.
So I'm not giving it up.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, for me, it's weird. It's weird too. Like, I don't know why, though. Like, like, for some reason, if I'm gonna read about something or if I'm gonna have some spare time, I'm generally gonna read about music or listen to music or try to discover new music.
Right.
Play music. It's a weird. Why is that? It's a.
That's what I'm saying. But I think.
Why do you think that is?
Because I think it's literally a life force. It's a reason for living.
Mm.
It resonates on such a deep level that it's the thing that sort of like dictates the course of your life. Yeah. It's not a phase or some like party thing.
Yeah. And this is a little diversion, but this is the thing I've been asking people too, is that there's no hits anymore. It's weird. Like there's no. I feel like before.
Yeah.
there be like hits, like the last couple, you remember you have like Inspector Norse or like that Oni Ayun or like these tracks that like everybody plays.
Yep.
But I feel like this year, I don't know. I mean, today I read the Resident Advisor top tracks, and there was it just.
What's number one?
I can't remember that Russian song with the really fast vocals.
See, you saying that, I don't know what it is.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's passing have read about it before on the internet, but I think that's a weird thing now, and I don't know if that's because there's so much music coming out, or if I'm getting old.
I think it's a combination of right now there is like for me as a producer, I have a hard time not writing epic tracks.
Yeah.
Like my career defining track is 12 minutes long, and it's like a fucking epic journey.
Yeah.
And I think there's right now that's not what people want. Like they want more linear, kind of like not big moments kind of thing, and definitely not things with vocals. No.
I don't know. I don't go out enough to say.
I think and I go out all the time.
Yeah.
And I think that's in DJing, that's the thing, like, and also like I always say there's this idea that like some conventional wisdom that there's so much like shitty music being released all the time, and it's hard to wade through it. And I say what's really difficult about right now is there's lots of decent music.
Yeah.
Like there's so much like pretty good music.
Yeah, I have this thing that where I keep saying, I've said it before, is that when it's really close to being good,
that's what I mean.
That it makes it worse.
That's what I'm saying.
Isn't that fucked up?
There's so much, but it's pretty good though.
No, I know, but it's weird that you like if it's really close to the thing you like hate it more.
Right.
Why?
I don't hate it though.
No, I do.
Right, but I know exactly. But what you're saying is what I'm saying. Like same thing. It's like the problem is not that there's this sea of terrible music, because then you'd be like, oh, here are the gems.
Yeah.
If the problem is like
everything
wherever you go
okay
to listen to music, you're like, oh, that's good, that's good, that's good, that's good, and then now you have 50 new tracks that are good.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's weird to me that, like I just, it's cool. Like, like when you're on the dance floor and the song comes on, like whatever,
Yeah.
Donna Summer, I Feel Love, and you can like look at everybody and sing all the words or whatever.
Yeah.
That's whatever example you want to give, like,
yeah.
Wu-Tang Clan, whatever song you want to have, like,
yeah.
I don't, what are those songs now? I want to know what they are.
Yeah.
Like I want to stay clued in, and I don't know what they are.
I think it's just not a thing that's people are like aspiring to make. I don't think it's a thing that's valued right now.
Hits.
Like even myself as a DJ, I mean, honestly, if something comes out that seems to be like an immediate kind of hit, I don't even, like, I know there's no way I'm going to play it. Like, I'm just not going to play it.
Yeah, and that's the other thing, too, is, like, if you don't find out about it yourself on your own terms,
right,
then it's not cool.
Yeah.
These are just weird social things. Like, I don't know why we have these behaviors, but we do.
But I also think that there's this kind of, like, conventional wisdom, used to be conventional, that like you wouldn't really be a good DJ until you're at least 30, and the implication is that you've been DJing for like 10 years, and I really believe that. Like I think there's a lot of young DJs who, like, everyone has access to all the same music, like they're better than me at like downloading like everything, like stuff I don't know about from even the 90s that I didn't even know about. And they can accumulate all these tracks and play them, but they're not playing them through a filter that has been developed over the course of like a couple of decades.
Yeah, I mean, you need experience to get better at stuff,
And what is better, like I was playing with Dave P.
Yeah.
Our
R.I.P. No, I'm just kidding. Sorry.
I love Dave P.
I'm going to get him on here one day.
He's the best. He would be great to have on here. But we were playing Monday night in Philly.
Yeah.
Which sounds like a recipe for
tough crowd.
Nothing. But it actually was amazing. Like a small place, dark. Everyone's like in the groove, like dancing, like amazing.
But what, he's playing like The Clash or something?
No. We were both playing like heady, chuggy, weird, psychedelic stuff. And I just kind of like went way out on these limbs, like where even for me, I would kind of like dangle myself out there into these like, like mixing a couple of things that, just getting into these zones where I'm like, how am I going to come back from this thing?
That's Dave's problem.
And then I'd bring it back and I'd be like, oh my God, like I just was in that mode where things worked. And the promoter came up to me and she was like, how are you even doing this? I was like, I don't know, and I'm just doing it. And then I thought about it as I'm like lying in bed later. I'm like, how did I do that? And it's because I'm not thinking about it. Like I'm responding to like now 30 years of stuff, so that when I'm way out on those limbs DJing, like I'm not thinking using my brain. Like I'm just intuitively making decisions that are filtered through decades of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you get it. It's like autopilot.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, I had that. Played at a lot party, like one of the summer ones.
Yeah, I might have played.
And I completely blacked out.
Yeah,
like, completely.
Yeah.
And I woke up in the morning and I was like, where's my records? Did I get my records home? How did I get home? And then I was like, like what happened? And then, like asking, everybody's like, oh, you played great. And I'm like, no, I don't know. Like, do you remember when the power went out? I'm sorry. I'm like, no, I don't remember. And then I listened back and it's like, fine. Like I played all the hits, mixed them fine. Like, I don't know. You get into this zone, and and I don't know if, could I have done that when I was 23?
I couldn't. No way could I have done it. No. There wouldn't be anything underneath the initial freak out of like,
Now I just have like I'm like auditory hallucination. I'm always doing the opening set at Good Room, so it's like this big, huge, empty room.
I recently did that.
Yeah, it's hard.
It was so fun though.
No
one's there.
No, but then you get this weird time where you like get a couple people dancing, and then you're like, I'm gonna try to keep these people, and then you lose them,
and then they leave.
And then you're like,
crushed.
Oh, God, and then you start hearing these people like, this guy sucks, and whatever, like whatever.
I did it recently. I thought it was so fun, but I don't ever do it. If I had to do it all the time, my soul would be crushed.
Hard. It's hard.
Really hard.
Yeah.
But why don't? I was talking to Josh about this. Josh, who books Good Room, and I was like, that place in particular, like, no matter who's playing,
we could do it without. You could do only locals.
Yeah. Why does no one go before 12:30?
I don't know.
I don't get it.
I think the drinks are too expensive.
Really?
Yeah. Because we don't have that same, like if you go to the bar and you stand there and you see someone order a drink and they order like a whiskey soda and it's $12.
I didn't know
it's kind
that.
of shocking.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
I mean, I hate to say it, but I generally don't pay for anything.
No, I know. That's what I'm saying. Like that's what we don't have that. We usually just go to the cooler or
or
drink whatever you want. Yeah. Yeah. So you don't have that. I think if they had like before 12, there's a $5 beer and a $6 mixed drink.
There's also the thing about, I mean, every time I play in Berlin, I feel like I come home and I'm so upset because the 24-hour party is amazing.
Yeah, I mean, there's quite a bit more freedom there.
Berghain, go to Panorama Bar, like wake up on Sunday and go there. It's the best time. Like go there Sunday, have a coffee, like hang out all day. Sunday night at like 8 p.m. and you're at the best time. Yeah. But here it's like, what do you have? 10 like if you're showing up at 12:30 and leaving at 4, you're talking about I'm not good at math, but how long is that?
It's compressed.
Yeah. It's like this binge compressed time.
But this is the reason why scenes like Boston and Philly or these cities that close at 1:30 or
1.
2.
Yeah, Boston during the week it's 1 o'clock.
Yeah, I mean there's just no
like what do you do?
Fight in the streets.
Like I had it put in my contract with my U.S. agent that I had to play a minimum of 2 hours because you'd get these like hour and a half DJ sets, and what do you do in an hour and a half?
Bang it out.
Kind of, yeah, and it's like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's weird.
It's weird. It's weird to me.
I don't know. I couldn't. I mean,
but it depends on the kind of DJing you're doing and what kind of what the vibe is.
Yeah.
Like I'm not a party DJ. I'm not a
rocker.
Party person.
You're not playing hits.
No, there's a kind of like I was trying to explain this to someone recently who's not familiar with like the DJ world in general, and I was like, there's a kind of the party where you see like everyone has like their hands in the air, and even DJs, and I'm like, what are they doing? Like I've never put my hands in the air like this. Like I'm like, what are you doing? And that, okay, like not even to disparage that. That's just a different thing. I'm more like I said, like head down in the dark. You know,
don't talk
vibe.
to me.
Don't talk. Don't talk. I guess that stuff doesn't make for a good Instagram photo, does it?
I don't know. I mean, we'll see. I mean, everything has its cycles.
That always in cycles. I was.
You see these super kids. I work at where I work at the thing.
Yeah.
You see like the super hip kids that are young. These are like 17, 16-year-old kids. They have a Walkman and they have a flip phone.
And they want records with breaks.
No, they're buying like a middle of the road rock and roll tapes. Whatever Spyro Gyra or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. We don't know what the next thing is going to be.
All I know is like everyone's into like techno is so big, and it seems inconceivable that in 5 years people will go back to disco, but it always happens.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird when people don't like disco, but I mean
that is a weird thing.
But New York is a disco town. That's what I keep. I mean,
I guess that's why it is weird for us.
Because it's just.
But it's bizarre to me.
New York it's just you come to New York and you listen to disco. It's like that's just how it is,
But there is a way of like when you've come up DJing in New York, like you have. Well, at least when we did, like you had to be able to show up and play like house, techno, any number of things in a small room. With like 2 turntables that barely worked, and like keep a party going. Yeah.
No, I for me now, I really like the gigs where they don't care who. I like playing at Good Room because they don't care who you are. They're there for a party. Yeah. And you're there to make them dance, and they don't care anything about you.
That's there's something actually very pure about that.
I really like that. And you go to these other smaller gigs and I'm enjoying that quite a bit lately. Yeah. Like just the anonymous, like I've been playing at the Wythe Hotel even. Yeah. Sometimes, and they don't care who you are. Yeah. And like to go in there and like make those people, whatever various crowd is in there that night. Yeah. If you can like keep them there and have them, look up and be like, oh, I like this song. Like those are the things I'm into this like working DJ thing now.
That's very New York.
Yeah, it's weird because I mean, for a little while I was doing the touring thing, and like people, you're on Resident Advisor and you play these 3 gigs in the weekend, and hotels and driver pickups and stuff like that. But it becomes tedious. Or I don't know. It's very lucky to be able to do that. Yeah. And get paid for it, but it's also
that's my world.
I don't know. It's probably a combination of I probably couldn't have done it much longer for popularity reasons, and also I didn't like it. Yeah. It's like a weird, I'm not sure what to blame it on or whatever, but I made a choice, like I'm quit my booking agency. I can't do this anymore. Like I'm not making enough money to do it and come back home and pay rent and like feel good, like you would do it if you the amount of gigs you have to do it and come back and live in New York City. It's quite a bit, Yeah. Like it's no joke. Like you need to be away at least 2 weekends a month. Oh yeah. Probably three is you're okay, and 4 is even better.
I check off 2 weekends is kind of the minimum for me.
Like no, and that's like going to like Moscow and St. Petersburg and coming home and maybe stopping in Berlin or Oslo or wherever.
I also there's this whole thing I've been thinking about lately about in that way of like there's a kind of philosophy about DJing of like, do you look out and survey a crowd and you're like, all right, this is what I'm going to do because I can read this crowd and I'm going to play to what they seem to want. And I realized I used to think that's what I did. And then recently I was like, I really don't do that. I'm like, I'm more like, this is my vibe and I get lost in my thing.
Yeah.
And then I'll throw things out and be like, okay, well, they respond to that thing a little more. Like, I'll go with that. But in general, it's kind of like, here's my vibe. And do you want to come along for the ride?
Well, I mean that there's a reason to do that. You know, people came to see you. They want to see you do your thing.
And that's why I think I'm in a very privileged position because I think I got ushered into something like pre-internet.
Yeah.
And I kind of like, as a legacy artist... I don't have anything to, which is a term that I used to get really upset about, but now I've just kind of like embraced.
Legacy artist.
It sounds so depressing.
Tell us about being a legacy artist.
Man. To me, I used to check it off as like, you're just like a, older thing, but now I'm like, when I think of the people that. When I look at them and I'm like, I want to do what they do. It's like, Roman Flugel.
Yeah.
Like that guy's been DJing since like 1990.
Yeah.
And he always makes good records. And he's a fucking amazing DJ. And he plays new music and like, he's just good.
Yeah.
I don't know. What else can you do really?
You got 10 more years.
I think about that.
Before you catch up
I'm
with
like,
them.
What are we doing? Because I'm like, how long do you go?
I don't know. I mean, there's no escape route really.
I don't have one anymore.
No.
Like, what am I going to do? Like,
you got to sell all that gear you got for $50.
And then
pay 1 month rent.
How would I apply for a job? They'd be like, what have you been doing for the last 20 years? Like DJing?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I had this thing with I'm married now and
I didn't know.
Yeah.
When did you
over the summer?
Oh, okay.
And but I had this weird thing like I was doing that and I was like, talking to my wife's parents and her relatives.
Yeah.
And I was like, what do you do? They're like, what do you do? And I'm like, well, I travel around and I DJ. And I was like, so that's when I started the repair business. I was like, it's like,
seems more legitimate.
I got to do something else, because the traveling thing is really hard. Like I enjoy it a lot and I miss seeing all my friends, but
I do.
It's hard.
I love it.
Yeah.
I'm more comfortable being on the road than being home.
Yeah. I understand, but you're a legacy artist. I didn't.
Yeah, I'm a legacy.
I didn't. I didn't quite make the cut. I'm not on the roster.
Yeah.
So I don't know what. We've been going for 2 hours and 13 minutes here on Talk Radio with Juan MacLean.
Yeah.
Should we? Is there when you came here?
Yeah.
Did you have like some things like I want to talk about that? Did you I'm sure you.
We
thought
touched on a lot of the things actually.
I'm sure you thought about something.
I did.
I want to talk about that. And maybe there was something you didn't. You're like, I hope I don't talk about that. We probably talked about that too.
No, kind of. I think we hit a lot of the things, but the things that have been on my mind lately have been kind of like
no talking on the dance floor.
Yeah, like kind of no, seriously, like these kinds of like the space. Like what? Okay. If you've been doing it as long as I've been doing it, I think there is an inevitable, inescapable series of moments where you're sitting in a hotel room after a kind of shitty gig and you're like in like where? What country? I don't know. Somewhere in the middle of France.
It's always Germany.
Yeah, in Germany. Where you're like, what am I doing with my life?
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck is this? Am I just playing music for for people to just like get fucked up to, and then
drugged up Muppets.
Yeah, and then they're gonna like, it's just a phase, and then they're gonna get like their real job and go on with their life and never remember this. And I kind of arrived, first of all, I was like, there was a point in my life where I was like, I'm not gonna take any more gigs that I don't care about. And I'm not gonna play. I'm only gonna play music that I care about. Not that I was ever playing music that I didn't like. It was just an overall. Every gig is going to be exactly like what I want to be doing, kind of thing. And I'm not a hippie, but I do believe in the venue, the setting, and the music as a kind of like healing experience in this terrible time of like late stage capitalism that we're living in.
Yeah, I mean, it is definitely a good escape,
But more than an escape. And I've been really interested in this question of like these experiences that we have, like that I still have at my age with people like on a dance floor that seem like incredibly meaningful, of like being lost in music and a DJ plays something and I'm just like, oh my God, like this is the greatest thing I've ever heard in my life. And it seems to be like vibrating through my body, and I'm with like my friends and, and I'm like, what is better than this?
Yeah. I don't know how music is that good. It's weird. I mean, it's something you obsess over. I mean, I mean, I tried to have this other thing that I ask people, like, it's like, say you have 10 songs and, 20 people, there'll be something that's better, that one's better than the other one, and all the people like appreciate it, like, and that may be that thing that you experience at that moment that makes you feel that way. Like, what is that? Like, is it's some frequency, some math, some harmony, I
think it's all of it.
Yeah.
I know that we are at our most essential nature, we are just vibrating energy. Like we're just energy that's vibrating, and that's what music is and sound is. It's just vibration. And I think if you can get out of the way of that, which is a lot of the time in the spaces we're talking about is achieved through some kind of substance, and being in the dark, with a good sound system, in the middle of the night, you can have those moments, and they're really transcendent moments. And I think of them, and I've had them recently, like when I was at, actually nowadays for Powder. Like I just remember this moment of just dancing with my friends, and like it was just this moment of like pure presence, of like the sound just like vibrating my body. I wasn't thinking about anything, and it just was like purely being in the moment. And it sounds like such a basic, simple thing, but it's a really meaningful thing.
Yeah, but I mean, that's something too, is like you're there with like five there, he's there with you. You're sharing this experience with someone who's from the other side of the world. Yeah. And you're there with them.
Who, by the way, couldn't speak English.
Yeah, and you're
5 words of English.
But you're there with them, and you're on the exact same page in the exact same moment, and you're like flowing there together. That's
a good point, because he is a person that I still don't know his real name.
But you can stand right next to him and be like, I like this guy.
No, he barely speaks English.
I know him a little bit too.
Yeah. A lovely guy. Like I love this guy, and I say that, and mainly my experience with him is in those moments,
just standing next to him,
and we just looked at each other, and like he was just like we were just laughing, this is amazing. And when else do you ever get to experience that?
I don't know.
Yeah,
maybe sports or something.
I love sports, actually. I grew up playing sports, and I don't know if you're joking, but I would agree, actually.
No, I think so. Yeah. I'm not joking. No, because it's these moments where you're like, I mean, what you live for is these moments where you're in the moment and you're not thinking about anything else.
Yeah, I mean they call it like flow
The
state.
flow, yeah.
I don't think I can have any more of that. Yeah, that's maybe a little bit. I'm not a big drinker, you know.
We don't have to. You only had 3 glasses of wine,
But that's a lot for me.
Oh.
I'm more a
we had
psychedelic person.
Do you think we've gone 2 hours and 20 minutes?
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, it's a lot for people to make it through.
Yeah, it's okay though. You know, they'll be fine.
You can cut out the singles.
Best of.
Yeah, the best of
the highlights. But
yeah.
I really appreciate coming by. I hope you had a good time.
Yeah, I really did. Like,
yeah. Anybody out there can. You said you had a new album out and whatever.
I did.
If you see him on the dance
this
floor,
is the promotional.
just leave him alone.
Yeah.
But you can say hello and
say hi and
goodbye.
Yeah, and then my.
But just respect people and if you see them having a moment, flowing.
Yeah,
with their friends.
And I have I think my next EP
is coming up.
Is on. Do you know Correspondent? That label.
No.
Jennifer Cardini's label.
I know Yeah.
Yeah, it's on her label.
That's cool, man.
Yeah, very excited about that.
And so
lots of arpeggiators.
You got some of those or what?
It's I've fallen in love with arpeggiators.
Dig it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Anything else we missed here? Juan MacLean here.
That's it.
On Talk Video. Thanks very much for coming by.
Thanks for having me.
And see you guys next time.